If you can't afford a glass eye for your empty eye hole, what would be something that could fill the void? Why is nobody asking any questions? Why are you forcing me to fill the void with nonsense? Nobody could ever put me out of business. Many have tried and failed. Without trying, but trying something completely unrelated. Some people are still asking, as some people are busy. Also, some left ages ago. Then others left, with the new layout and glitching of not seeing some of our contacts. Also, some don't ask questions when they want points, or because of reporting going on. Have any good questions at the time. I gave up on asking questions here, looking for answers. What's your favourite food? Whilst, how do I find my biological father? We'll end up with one advertisement spam and no answers. This is a juvenile website. How can you get something out of nothing? I personally believe there was another universe before this one, but perhaps not the one conveyed in any man-made religion. The universe is so mysterious. If I may, clearly, you're doing something wrong if all of these people are trying to shut you down. Don't truly understand what it is that you do. Perhaps you should clarify. This is the wrong site. Answer stuff. To give off most of its energy in the form of visible light, but not as hot as the sun, and gives off most of its energy in the form of radio waves. The object giving off loses that energy and cools off. Magnetic energy, be they visible light, invisible infrared light, or radio waves, move through space in a straight line until they hit an of the radiation heated by the sun. Heat is thermal radiation, or in infrared. What causes a rise in temperature on Earth is the excitation of particles by thermal radiation, or sometimes other forms of radiation. If radiation does not hit something, like it was in a vacuum, it will simply continue on. With the belief that science is truth, people believe in their senses. Judge not by the flesh. Science will not bring us through our personal hells that we make up. We must change our minds. I agree with this, or not knowing, and they need something to cling to. And being an atheist would suggest that they cling to science and what it reveals as true, unless the supposed atheists are of a belief system that would allow for them to have religious beliefs that do not include a deity or God. But then, only such an example. So yes, I agree, basically. Because if you were a true free thinker, you wouldn't put faith in anything. This is a concept I used to struggle to wrap my head around, but it's actually fairly easy. Okay, so you're assuming that the Big Bang was an explosion, like I and many others used to, but it wasn't. It was an expansion. Basically, it was a tiny point that blew up bigger and bigger, like a balloon. So the centre of the Big Bang is the universe itself. Of course, there is a centre to the universe. The Big Bang actually happened all around us, because it was just a spot that expanded. Is the warranty void on my imported Peugeot? I live in Ireland. I bought a Peugeot in England and imported it. My local Peugeot agent won't entertain me. Is it any surprise that as the concept of God becomes less and less tangible, atheism rushed in to fill the void? Once upon a time, God was literally believed to be some kind of Superman, who sometimes changed into a burning bush or his own sun. Over the centuries, this concept went out of fashion. Believe anyone who says they are God's son in this day and age. God is now said to be a force or energy, i.e., anything which is unmeasurable. With the rise of science, hasn't this conceptual shift become essential to survive? God of nature and acting through nature was a product of the scientific age by the then young Christian Reformation. This has resulted in a crisis in faith as science becomes more clearly the result of random forces and probability and less mechanistic and deterministic. It must return to its mystical roots, reinforced by tangible symbols and rituals, in order to clearly separate the world of science from the world where the physical and the spiritual come together. I don't clearly see this as a dichotomy, the motherhood of God versus God as a cosmic force. Both can coexist with science. It becomes a matter of emphasis. Clearly, some go so far to declare science false, just as others go so far to say science can and will, if it exists at all. By definition, a concept is not tangible, and you are misinformed. There are millions and millions of people who believe in God as a deity, not a force or energy. Imagine the air inside the balloon as it inflates. There is no void in the centre as the inflation takes place. No imaging a balloon with a little air inside it, energy in the universe, and expose it to a vacuum. It will inflate, and still there is no void space created in the middle. But the temperature and pressure of the air drops just like the temperature and average density of matter in the universe have fallen with the expansion. I'm a Christian. Do I care if everyone is a believer or converts? No, I don't give a shit. For me, being a Christian is more of a lifestyle, meaning I try to be a good person. Father, husband, etc. Can you do this without believing in Jesus? Sure. Can I prove there is a God? And I don't think I need to. People believe what they want. Many of these beliefs cannot be proven. The world is full of them. I don't think we need to try and convert each other on our beliefs, but rather focus on what those beliefs are turning you into. Cheers to life, love, and humanity. All of peanuts that God turned into, dry roasted. How can I calculate the time it would take for a room filled with air to empty out into a void through a 1 by 1 meter hole? Please explain to me this quotation of Bruce Lee, one of the greatest martial artists and philosopher. The void is no mere emptiness, but it is real, free, and existing. It is the source from which all things arise and return. Touched or known, yet it exists and is freely used. It has no shape, size, colour, or form, and yet all that we see, hear, feel, and touch is it. It is beyond intellectual knowing and cannot be grasped by the ordinary mind. When we suddenly awake to the realization that there is no barrier, one realizes that one is all things: mountains, rivers, grasses, trees, sun, stars, universe are all oneself. There is no longer a division or barrier between myself and others, no longer any feeling of alienation or fear. Realizing this results in true compassion. Other people and things are not seen as apart from oneself, on the contrary, as one's own body. Give your answer in points and in simple English like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Choose your answer as the best answer. The late Bruce Lee, although a very genetically gifted individual in many ways, and superb martial artist, as well as a student of philosophy, was not, in and of himself, a philosopher of note. He simply repeated what others had said before him, and what you have cited is an example of the same. In this quote, the late Mr. Lee is simply espousing what master martial artists have said since the creation of the arts, which is, one's truest opponent is oneself, and one's own ego, or the false sense of self that maintains one's illusion of separateness from the true nature of reality and oneself in relation to the same. Such a realization or awareness is enlightenment which frees one from the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, etc. This is a part of the Bushido Code, as the same was practiced by the samurai and was taken from Chan Zen Buddhist teachings. Your post seems to be in the style of another poster, label, yet usually presented that oneself as a philosophy honours student, wants to be structured in the format you requested, as well as utilising the same ending phrase. This one has supplied you with an answer to your query. However, it is not and will not be in the controlling style you have requested. I want to ask the poster, why the continued game? Google naturalistic pantheism. www.beyondthelimits4.blogspot.com. If gold glows with the honest stupidity of the void, lies and deceit of those in power, does silver sweat with fear or hope? Ask the fairies in your garden. Silver is the Lone Ranger's horse. No. Skip the waste of time games. Yes. What? Do you think there is a big void in the political parties of Britain? Do you think it is time for a new women's party? Before you all jump on me, I think women have a different approach, so men do, and a very different way of approaching most issues, and they certainly work harder at it by looking after homes, children, elderly relatives, men, and neighbours experience far more in their lives and deal with more traumatic experiences away. I'm just asking you to consider these things, please. A few years ago, 7 of the world's countries were run by women. I agree. We have 2 Scottish Tory parties, a laboratory, and a small bunch of loonies who decided to put up a gay pot-smoking policeman as their candidate for London Mayor. Venting over the void of being single. Maybe just venting, but I can get sex. However, when it comes to girlfriends, it does not happen. However, what annoys me is feeling lonely, and it is always there in my heart. Don't feel lonely. Get a professional escort like I did. They're cheaper than a wife, and don't shit. I don't want kids, because they're expensive and ungrateful. Especially the first try for a blurb. Written down, typed down in this case. So, considering it's my first time on any kind of writing or typing material, I accept criticisms or comments, and whether or not it sounds interesting. She's not sure why her father is being hunted. She's got no clue why the spirit world is being forced to break. She's got no idea what is trapped inside the void. However, she understands this. Her father are bloodthirsty, that the spirit world is what keeps her from falling apart. And she learns that the thing inside the void has not been seen and spoken for 11 years. Her bar is burnt down. She has 3 children with her, and the person who set fire to her bar is alive, and he's hot on her trail. I would actually be interested in reading the full story after reading this. Yes, the blurb could do with a bit of refinement, but I think that you have the makings of a great hook in there. Grab the reader by the throat and make them want to read on. It seems to me that there are 2 parts to the blurb. The spirit world and the void, which seems to be on a more global level. Personal life. At the moment, this is one big paragraph. Conflicts. The reader think that before I cared about what was in the void. But then again, so I can't really judge that. What book is this for? Is it published yet? Could you answer to me? It's a great book blurb, totally awesome. Suspense, makes me want to read it. Terrible. It's not terrible. But you did tell us to be brutal. It sounds good. Good luck. An amendment was won by one vote. After the meeting, it was discovered that one vote for the amendment was void. After the meeting, it was discovered that one vote for the amendment was void. Not really. The chairman would have a casting vote, i.e., he would get a second vote. Porosity is the open space between soil grains. Soil scientists use porosity measurements to determine how effectively air and water move through the subsurface. Within a soil column help promote infiltration, allowing the water to uptake into the root system of plants without mounding and becoming boggy. Soil porosity is the open space, or voids, within the soil profile that is free for air and water. Between grains of sand, silt, clay, and organic matter in the soil. The size and types of the sediments in the soil. Porosity. Homogeneous samples usually have greater porosity values than mixtures. Sediments present in the soil largely determines the porosity. Soil with homogeneous grains have the largest porosity values because there is maximum open space between grains. When large grains, such as sand, are mixed with smaller grains of silt or clay, the porosity is lower. The lower porosity is due to small grains filling the voids between the larger grains. Scientists often measure two types of porosity in soil. The total porosity is the ratio of all the volume of the voids to the volume of the soil sample. The effective porosity is the amount of connected void space available to move air and water through the soil. Porosity is always equal to or less than the total porosity. Isolated void spaces that do not connect to open areas are not part of the effective porosity calculation. Soil scientists discuss porosity as a fraction or percentage. It does not have dimensions. Georonic porosity values have a range of values, although geotechnical engineers test a soil sample to obtain a more precise value. Gravel porosities range from 0.25 to 0.40, while sand values range from to 0.50. The porosity of silt ranges from 0.35 to 0.50, while clay has the highest porosity range of 0.40 to 0.70. A sand and gravel mixture has a porosity range of 0.20 to 0.35, while glacial till has the lowest porosity range of 0.10 to 0.20 because of the mixture of large to small grains. Unless the Big Bang is continuous, expanding void where it started from. After all, we are told that we can now see the origin of the universe to within 1 second times 10 to the minus 18, or something equally preposterous. So why is there not a great big gaping hole where the Big Bang started? Unless good old Fred Hoyle was right by claiming that even though the Big Bang may have occurred, the creation of the universe is an ongoing, continuous thing, and that after the Big Bang, we entered into a steady state system. You remember that the Big Bang created the universe, the very space that encompasses everything, the point where the universe was formed, since space essentially is the universe. The universe suddenly expanded, but it wasn't completely like an explosion. It was more like a really, really fast expansion. The The product of that rapid expansion was an almost perfectly even distribution of energy and mass, and a little helium. The best visualization I can think of is to imagine a balloon that hasn't been inflated yet, with a filled-in circle drawn on it with marker. Now blow the balloon up. The circle gets bigger, but it doesn't become hollow. The universe does continue to expand, and now gravity has caused matter to coalesce into blobs and stars, and supernovae have converted some of the original hydrogen and helium into heavier elements. But if you could see the whole universe from a distance, it would still seem to be even and uniform. To use another analogy, think of a glass. Yes, there are water molecules separated by empty space, but without looking at water on a molecular level, even and uniform. In fact, the universe's matter distribution is more uniform than a glass of water. That when you can only see it from our tiny little part of the whole thing. As for the vast areas of emptiness that are caused by the expansion, they are the areas between galaxies and more so between galactic clusters. This space is growing as the universe expands. 1. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle as applied to space-time in quantum mechanics. 2. Consciousness and introspection of its own essential nature. 3. Right hemisphere cognitive dominance, resulting in non-distinguishing perception of reality. Intuitive grasp of what Big Bang Theory implies. 5. Eastern Philosophy ontology. 6. A perfect sphere with an inner surface that is a perfect mirror. 7. The space between thought.